Hey there, and welcome back to Superman Week here on the channel. Today I'm going to take a look at a Silver Age story from 1962. This is from Superman 156, and this is the last days of Superman. I don't know for sure the creators on this book, so I'm not going to list the credits. And again, you know, back then comics didn't list creator credits. So starting off, we've got this nice big splash page of Superman being lifted into the Fortress of Solitude by some small Kandorians here. And so the story starts off here with a space capsule up in orbit, and it's about to collide with this green object. So Superman goes up into space to stop that, and then he realizes that the green object is green kryptonite. So he's able to save the capsule and kind of deflect the kryptonite back to Earth. Jimmy Olsen is here on site with Superman. And so Jimmy goes to examine this cabinet and opens it up. Superman sees from the writing on the cabinet that it contains a Kryptonian virus called Virus X. And he notices that the wind is kind of blowing the germs onto him. So Superman takes this boulder and kind of smashes it underground, where hopefully it will be safe and won't affect Superman. But Superman says he saw the wind blowing the germs onto him, so he feels sick. So he's worried that he's been affected by this Virus X from Krypton. So Jimmy takes Superman to a doctor in Metropolis who says that Superman is infected and he has probably 30 days to live. So they're all getting the news here, and Superman's starting to kind of contemplate his mortality here. Again, something we don't usually see from Superman. Then Superman returns to the Fortress of Solitude and decides that he has a list of things he wanted to accomplish before he died, sort of things to help keep Earth safe from threats that will be happening in the future. He then asks the staff at the Daily Planet to kind of keep the news of his condition to themselves, and that he wants to tell Supergirl himself. So he starts off here out in the desert constructing these giant shovels. And the plan is to use these shovels to create like irrigation ditches in the desert. But Superman's already too affected by the virus and kind of collapses and kind of can't do it on his own. So he calls in the Superman robots to help him out. And so they create this sort of lead glass structure for Superman to stay in, so he won't affect Supergirl or anybody else with the virus. And again, that's what we see here on the cover. Then Supergirl shows up, and Superman kind of gives her the list of things he wants to accomplish. And so she goes to the future to get the Legion of Superheroes. And so that is the end of Chapter 1. And then we have Part 2, the Super Comrades of All Time. So this is Supergirl kind of recruiting everybody to help out with the tasks. We have Krypto going to Atlantis to find Lori Lamaris. And so this is Supergirl's old mermaid girlfriend. But she can communicate with Krypto telepathically. So Krypto can kind of tell her what the plan is and what they need to do. Then we have this emergency squad from Kandor. And so, again, these are people that have been shrunk down into the bottle city of Kandor, but they're enlarging themselves a little bit, enough to kind of get out of the bottle and come help out. Then we see the Legion of Superheroes here in the future, kind of all getting ready to come back to the past, our present, of 1962, to help out with Superman. But Brainiac 5 stays behind. And he says, Superman's fatal illness gives me the chance I've waited for a long time. And so there's a caption here kind of implying that Brainiac 5, being a descendant of Brainiac, the longtime Superman villain, might have some ulterior motive here. You know, it's possible that Brainiac has been playing the long game with Superman here. I feel like that's something they don't really bring up with Brainiac 5, but here they are playing that card, so that's kind of interesting in this story. Then we're back to present day, where the Superman robots are kind of digging this irrigation system, these canals, and they keep mentioning like the ones on Mars. So I don't know if that's something that was maybe in the news at the time, because they keep referring to it as sort of irrigation canals like on Mars. So I feel like that kind of had to be in the public consciousness at the time or something like that. Then there's another task that Superman was going to take care of. where there's a planet that's kind of gone rogue and will end up hitting Earth in the future. So Supergirl goes out into space to take care of that. So she kind of rams the planet into another uninhabited planet. And again, this is just one of 6 panels on this page. That would be a double page spread today if they were doing something like that. So yeah, Silver Age storytelling. Then on the next panel here, Superman sees a red star in the sky and knows that Supergirl has succeeded in destroying the planet. So this next task they are doing has the Legion and Supergirl and everybody making this like giant pyramid of iron bars. And so then Cosmic Boy takes the bars out into space, and Lightning Lad sort of electrifies them with his powers, and for a while it creates this sort of ring around the Earth like Saturn. And so then they take the ring of iron out into space, into this giant space fungus that will be an issue to Earth in the future. And so the electricity carried by the iron kind of dissipates the fungus and destroys it. Again, you know, something else that Superman knew would be a problem later on that they've kind of averted for now. And then we have Lois kind of being overcome here as she says she hasn't eaten or slept for days because she's so worried about Superman. And so Superman tells Jimmy to take her back to Metropolis, and as they're leaving, Superman kind of takes off on his own. Jimmy comes back and sees that Superman has left, and he's worried that Superman has kind of like gone off on his own to die. Now Supergirl goes back to the future to find Brainiac 5 and kind of demand that he helps out, or she's going to ask that he resigns from the Legion. Brainiac 5 tells her that he's been trying to find a cure for the Virus X, but he has come up short and can't find a solution. And so that's the end of the second part. Now we've got part 3, Superman's last day of life. And so Jimmy is in the helicopter here trying to locate Superman after he's taken off. And so then Supergirl and the Legion are down in Antarctica. This is one of the tasks Superman wanted done, to sort of terraform Antarctica into becoming inhabitable. So they've created this sculpture, and Supergirl says she can't use her heat vision because that would melt the ice too quickly and cause floods. So again, concern about global warming even back then. But Sunboy from the Legion uses his powers, and they create like this small artificial sun, which will help things grow gradually, and I would assume, you know, the idea is sustainably in Antarctica. Then we have this merman in the ocean giving a message to Supergirl saying that Lori Lamaris is asking for their help with the task in Atlantis. Then we see that Superman has left to go back to Smallville, and so he's kind of reminiscing about his time growing up in Smallville here. And then it cuts to him traveling to Gotham City, where he says goodbye to Batman and Robin. And while he doesn't come out and say it, Batman is thinking that, you know, we have said our final goodbye to Superman here. In a scene that this book is kind of known for, Superman goes off into space and uses his heat vision to carve a message to humanity in the moon. And so it says here, do good to others and every man can be a Superman. And he signs it Superman Clark Kent in parentheses. So he knows he's given away his secret identity here. But he states that there are clouds over Earth right now, so no one can see the moon. But once those clouds clear, people will see his message. But, you know, figuring out the timing, he assumes he'll be dead by then. He goes back to the desert here where they have the glass container. And meanwhile, in Atlantis, we realize what the task is in Atlantis is radioactivity has caused this creature to grow to like a giant size. And so Supergirl defeats the creature so it won't be a threat to Atlantis. Now Supergirl has decided to travel back in time to the past to Krypton to see if there is a cure for Virus X. So maybe the scientist that was working on it developed a cure before Krypton was destroyed. But she goes back sort of hidden to the scientist's lab, and he states that he, you know, cannot find a cure for Virus X, and he's going to destroy the sample that he has. So Supergirl goes back to the present to tell them that, you know, there is no cure. They don't really know what to do. And then Saturn Girl starts to get a telepathic message, and it's from Mon-El. And so this is Superman's friend who's stuck in the Phantom Zone, but he can communicate telepathically. So he tells Saturn Girl that Superman has never had Virus X, that the impact of the boulder sent a chunk of green kryptonite into Jimmy Olsen's camera. And so, since Superman has been locked away with Jimmy Olsen this whole time, it's been the green kryptonite in Jimmy's camera affecting him, not Virus X. So it turned out Jimmy didn't kill Superman by exposing him to a virus. He has killed him by exposing him to kryptonite for the entire story. And so now, once they get rid of the kryptonite, Superman's recovering. Everybody kind of takes off and goes home. But Superman gets Supergirl and Krypto to help him using their heat vision to burn off the section of the message on the moon that says Clark Kent. So they leave the message up there, but Superman hasn't given away his secret identity here at the end of the story. I can't remember what it is, but this moon message shows up later on in a comic book years from now, too. Because, you know, in continuity, it would still be there up until Crisis on Infinite Earths, I guess. So then at the end, Superman's just kind of here with Lois Lane and Lana Lang. And Lois says she's just happy that Superman's better. She doesn't even care about his secret identity right now. Lana says she doesn't either. And Superman says that's something to be thankful for too, as long as it lasts. So that's the end of our story of how Superman didn't die, actually, in 1962, but thought he was on his way out. So yeah, we've got the cover blurb here of not a hoax, not a dream, but real, the last days of Superman. And that's true, they didn't, you know, it may have been a hoax, I guess. I think you could still qualify that as a hoax, maybe. But not a dream. So, and again, not an imaginary story like they used to do back then. So that's definitely not what this is. But it is interesting to see Superman kind of dealing with his mortality in this way. You know, what does he want to accomplish before he dies? You know, I think that's a pretty interesting story, especially for something back then in the Silver Age. But yeah, again, I just think it's a decent story. And, you know, there's been several Death of Superman stories, you know, over the years. But I think this is an interesting one. It's not a fight with Doomsday. It's a virus that they think is killing him. It's like, you can't punch a virus, you know, so what do you do? So yeah, I think this is a good Silver Age story from back in the day. I really like this one. Have you read this? What are your thoughts? Is there another Death of Superman story I should take a look at? You know, let me know in the comments below. And be sure to come back for more Superman videos this week. And thanks for watching. If you'd like to follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter/X @Detective651. Also on Instagram @Detective651. Be sure to check out my t-shirt store at tpublic.com/user/detective651. I've got a lot of nerdy designs on there, and there's sales all the time, so check it out frequently.